Hey everyone, Rho here. Today we discuss the return of Lion El'Jonson, the ways he could come to accept Guilliman as his Imperial Regent. General spoiler warning to begin, as today we will be referencing events from across the Warhammer 40k universe, so you have been warned. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. So Lion El'Jonson, the loyal Primarch who has been anticipated, hoped for, dreamed of, for what feels like forever. And once again rumours have begun to arise of his return upon the horizon, which we discussed last week. For all the hopes and dreams of another loyal Primarch making the return, it feels like it's particularly high for El'Jonson, not only because he could well be the most likely, with us knowing exactly where he is, but also because his relationship with Guilliman is not expected to be the best, and in fact, in a worst case scenario, could be downright disastrous. Now why could that be? Well, we've actually seen the brothers spare a fair amount of time around each other within the Horus Heresy series, and their relationship was tense at best. Lion El'Jonson is a Primarch dedicated to his duty, dedicated to his father, the Emperor of Mankind. In the early years of the Horus Heresy, the Dark Angels Legion were embattled against the Night Lords, Conrad Kurz doing his utmost to keep the First Legion away from the Heresy playing field, and it was only once El'Jonson had dealt with that threat that he could truly take stock of the situation at large. With the Ruin Storm cutting off terror from large portions of the galaxy, it was to Guilliman's Ultramar that the Lion would head. However, far from the pooling of strength and resources that Guilliman had in mind, the Lion went to Ultramar with one intention alone: to break Guilliman and the Ultramarines at the merest sight of treachery. And the truth is, not only could it have happened, it very nearly did. As Guilliman and his legion welcomed the arriving First, the Lion had his entire force ready and waiting to launch the invasion of Macragge. One of my favourite lines in all of the Heresy is when the Lion utters, "My dear Roboute, I did not think for a moment that you had turned. I thought you'd done much, much worse. I think we both know you have." The Lion came in a pretense of brotherhood and friendship, but he was there as a judge, and if need be, executioner. While cooler heads prevailed in the fatal moments, the relationship continued to be fractured and strained. Despite the two working together with Guilliman's planned Secundus to keep their father's dream alive, it was really only the arrival of Sanguinius who tempered their continual friction. With the Lion, trust is in short supply, and he mistrusted Guilliman perhaps more so than many of his brothers. He may have hated Russ, but he never doubted his loyalty. He may have had no brotherly affection for Rogel, but he never doubted the Praetorian. With Guilliman, the Lion was extremely wary of his ambitions, his empire building. The Lion listened whilst Guilliman unveiled his dreams of Secundus, but make no mistake about it, had Guilliman even attempted to say that he was going to be Emperor, then the full force of the First Legion would have descended upon Macragge. Fast forward to the end of the heresy, Roboute Guilliman would be appointed the Lord Commander, taking over from Rogal Dorn. How this will play out remains to be seen once we hit the Scouring series, and I am pretty vocal about the fact I expect the Lion to already have departed for Caliban when it all transpires, or if he is present, that he will at the very least oppose it, because I personally just cannot see the Lion being willing to accept Guilliman as the Lord Commander of the entire Imperium, let alone being named as Imperial Regent. To him it would prove all the misgivings about Guilliman that he'd ever had. And as we've mentioned previously, we know Russ's belief that the Lion would have outright opposed the Codex Astartes, and I think most of us would agree with that opinion. The Lion is not at the council when Dorn and Guilliman argue over the Imperium's future, whatever that council may entail. So with all that in mind, if the Lion returned today, back to the current timeline, well, you can understand why many, myself included, would expect the Lion to be appalled by the current state of the Imperium, particularly in finding not only his once proud legion broken, but in finding Guilliman have appointed himself as Imperial Regent. While even then I never expect it to reach the point of an Imperium civil war, simply because that would be the end of 40k as we know it, I fully expect there to be a very tense reunion, even possibly conflict, until once again cooler heads prevail. But what if that's not the case? What if the Lion instead is accepting of the Guilliman he returns to find in command? Why and how could that happen? Well, maybe it's not quite so impossible, and maybe it is all to do with the Lion's guilt. The Lion is renowned amongst his brothers for playing his cards close to his chest, for keeping his emotions hidden. While no doubt some of this is for a strategic advantage, a lot of it is simply due to his nature. Spending his childhood alone, surviving amid the deep forest of Caliban. However, there is one circumstance so far where the Lion's emotions are truly on show, where they are visceral, and that is within Leman Russ's Primarch novel The Great Wolf by author Chris Raitt. Here, in the immediate days after the heresy, we see the Primarchs reeling in their grief. In the depths of the Imperial Palace, Russ awakens from a dream to find his brother Lion El'Jonson standing next to him, and the Lion is consumed by his grief. It's a great piece of insight into the Lion's nature, at how he just struggles with these truly human emotions, when he's unable to hide them behind his mask, unable to process them quite the same as his kin. For me, he's come to Russ because he's the only brother left who he has any semblance of a connection with, even if it is just one of rivals. As anyone in that situation, he's seeking solace, a way to rid himself of this overriding emotional pain, but he just doesn't know how to deal with it. As Russ is despondent in his grief, the Lion is just consumed in anger, bringing up their unended duel on Julian. But as Russ simply tells him to leave it be, the truth of the Lion's emotions come out. He yells at Russ that he should have been faster. The guilt on being too late to return to Terra. And there's a really defining quote from El'Jonson. I am guilty, just as you are. This is quite possibly the first time in the lion's life that he's ever had to process this kind of emotion, most certainly to this degree. It's completely overwhelming for him. The lion wants Russ to fight him, for the guilty to slay the guilty, because he just doesn't know what else to do. He doesn't know how else to deal with this emotion. And Russ, standing there, unarmored, unarmed, unwilling to fight his brother, merely shakes his head, and the lion drives his sword into Russ's chest. Now this act is the moment that allows the brothers to become, well, true brothers. According to Russ, it drained out the bad blood. The lion knew he wouldn't truly kill him. But I think it maybe could have done a lot more than just that. I think maybe for the first time in the lion's life, it allowed him to emotionally grow. I know, how mad does it sound to describe someone stabbing someone with a sword as a form of emotional growth? But we're talking about Primarchs here, and we're talking about the lion. This was the lion having to deal with an emotion like nothing he has ever had to contemplate. Russ, in a way, helped him do that. Is it just possible that the lion who comes out the other side of this moment could just be a changed man? We know going forward that Russ says the two could truly talk again after this. Let's be honest here, Lion El'Jonson has never been able to truly speak with any of his brothers. Could having to have dealt with this guilt and grief changed him as a man? It changes many of us, and the Primarchs at their core are still as human as the rest of us. Could the lion who awakens and returns to the current Imperium, rather than being the expected angered brother when it comes to Guilliman, be perhaps one who is more reflectful, one who has had some personal growth in the wake of the heresy, who has actually come to value the brotherhood of the Primarchs who remain, having now truly experienced loss for the first time in his life? Yes, the lion already knew that Ferrus had been slain, but the key difference here is that the lion didn't truly have any emotional bond with his brothers. So could this loss of his father truly have changed the lion? It is a definite possibility. And in taking that further, maybe the events he would go on to find on Caliban with Luther, the betrayal and his own homeworld turning against him, will only further re-emphasize these emotions. Maybe even help him to see that Guilliman's actions are indeed for the better. With Luther and his own legion turning against him, perhaps the lion will see the merit of the Codex Astartes, even despite the odds, not be appalled to find his legion broken into chapters, as many of us may think, at least once the reasons why have been explained to him. Again, I don't think this will be the case, or maybe rather I should say I'd prefer the more angered, no-nonsense lion that we've always had to be the one who returns. However, I can see a way that perhaps the Lion El'Jonson who does return could actually be a very changed man to the one we've always known. Now, there is the possibility of a best of both worlds, and most likely the lion we will get to see. The lion's wrath and destruction of Caliban in the aftermath of the heresy would imply that the lion of old is still well and truly there. So even in making those moments of personal growth within the depths of the palace with Russ, The wrathful lion could well be the one we see emerge into the current timeline. So how could this lion come to accept Guilliman as regent? Because surely there's no way he could. Well, I really think there is only one answer to that, and that is an interaction with his father, the master of mankind. Short of the Emperor informing El'Jonson of his plan, if the lion has no previous knowledge of Guilliman being the Lord Commander after the heresy, then there's no way I can see him accepting it any other way. And that is the distinction, whether or not the lion will be present for this decision after the siege. I don't think he will, but if he is, it will be a big game changer to the circumstances when, or if he returns. If the lion was present, then by and large you'd expect the lion's grievances against Guilliman to be far less. Perhaps an ire at the way Guilliman has called himself the voice of their father, and most likely feeling Guilliman hasn't done enough to fix the current situation. Most definitely being a little disgusted at the way Guilliman has kept bending to the will of lessers. However, nothing more than that. If the lion was not present at the end of the heresy, however, when Guilliman is anointed Lord Commander, well then the only way I see him accepting Guilliman's rule now is by their father's direct involvement. Something that would transpire before a climactic fight against Guilliman could take place, or maybe even during it. It would certainly make a great lore moment to read. However, as I said before, it's very possible it may well not even come to that. That the lion who emerges into this strange new Imperium could be a very different man from the one we have become used to. One who would be far more accepting of his brother Guilliman's rule. One who, for the first time in his life, has truly had to experience loss. But as always everyone, what do you think? How do you think the lion could come to accept Guilliman's rule as Lord Commander? Could we maybe see a change to the man that we've always known? And have the clues to it already been in front of us for quite a while now? Will the lion we see in his final moments be a very different man to the one who's been in the heresy? Or if the lion returns as we've always known him, will it take the involvement of their father to prevent him from removing Guilliman? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below, I love to read them. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow, and if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.